Hi everybody, welcome back to this video series. This will be the last and final part of this video series, and we are going to cover the implementation of FL on the Nectar cloud using Docker. This part is literally a combination of part 2 and part 3 that we have already covered, so should be straightforward. The contents for this part are such that we are going to log in into a virtual machine and going to copy the relevant files from the local machine to the VMs. In the previous part, we have copied those Python files, the README, the PyProject YAML files. In this one, we need to copy the Docker files as well. After that, we are going to install Docker in each and every virtual machine. And after installing that, we need to build the images for the server and 3 clients. So there will be one image built on the server VM and one image each on the client VM. After building these images, we are going to run the containers on these respective virtual machines. Okay, let's start with the first one. We need to log in and copy the files from the local machine to the VMs. Again, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to log in into the test VM that we have created in the previous video. And for that, SSH/-I, the key, which is present in this one. And the IP address of that test VM is this one. Okay, so we have logged in into this virtual machine. Let's look into the contents. We have this server folder that we have copied in the last part, and now we are going to copy the server files, which include the Docker file as well. So in the desktop, I have this server_docker folder, which contains the server Python file, the README file, PyProject, and the server flower Docker file, which we need to build the image and subsequently run that image using that container. So logging out of this virtual machine and going to copy that folder from the local machine to this VM. And for that, scp -r for the recursive, and the directory that we want to copy, in this case it's server Docker, and into the Ubuntu, the IP is 203.101.125.154, into the home Ubuntu. Okay, wonderful. Let's log in back into that VM and confirm. Yep, we have this folder. Let's go inside this folder and see the contents. Yes, we can see that we have a server Python file and the other files required for this example. Okay, after copying these files, we are going to install Docker in this virtual machine, and eventually we need to install this Docker for each and every VM. To install Docker, we have in detail a documentation available at the OSCAT webpage. Specifically on this subpage, we have these instructions to install Docker and eventually Portainer as well. We don't need to install Portainer for this example. And the instructions are also available on the official web page of Docker as well. So you can go to this web page and follow the instructions to install Docker on Ubuntu operating system. So we are going to follow these instructions to install Docker on our virtual machine. So starting from the first one, we need to require some packages, including CA certificates to validate and authenticate certificates, curl to download some data from the web, and so on and so forth. So let's start with the first one. Update this thing. Then going to install these packages. Then we are going to add Docker's official GPG key and set up repository. So let's make a repository first, directory first. And with these things, we are giving access or permissions of, edit, write, or read to the owner. After that, copy this whole thing. So it's going to fetch, this curl is to fetch the contents from this website, and will give the output of this command as an input to this one here. So specifically, it's going to copy or download the the Ubuntu key and place that into this directory, the directory that we have created in the previous step. After that, once more, and after that we are going to install our Docker. So this command will install the Docker on this virtual machine. And once it's done, we can check, or before that, we need to add user to the Docker group to make sure that we don't have to use this sudo command whenever we try to use some Docker command, so Docker build or Docker run. So just to avoid that sudo thing, we are going to add user to the Docker group. Okay. Okay, and let's verify whether we have installed this Docker perfectly or not. We are going to run an image by the name of hello world using this Docker run command. First, it's trying to find that image locally on this virtual machine. It hasn't found that, and then it's going to pull it from this library from the Docker Hub. And yep, it has pulled that, run that, and we can see this message which says hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. So wonderful, we have installed this Docker on this virtual machine. Last thing we need to one Docker is successfully installed, we need to initialize a swarm which will be used for the networking purposes. So let's install, let's run this, and for the IP address, it should be this IP. Yep, wonderful. So we have installed a Docker on this VM. It's a test VM. I have already installed Docker on the 4 machines that I've created before. These 4 virtual machines are for the server and 3 clients. So I have already installed Docker in these 4 virtual machines. So let's minimize this window, and I have these 4 windows or 4 terminals open. And what I'm gonna do, I'm going to log in these to 4 virtual machines using these 4 terminals. So ssh/i. So let's start with the server. Wonderful. For the client 1, perfect. And then for client 2, using the key for the second client, and then giving the IP address for this client. Yep. And finally, for the third client, okay, wonderful. So now we can inspect the contents of that Docker file folder. So let me check. So these are the two folders. Flower simulation, we are done with that in the previous part. We are going to see the contents of this second folder, flower underscore simulation underscore docker, and going to run that specific example. So let's go inside this folder, and we can see that we have this pyproject.toml file, server file for the Docker, and a server Python file. And similarly, I can see, I can check the contents for each of the client as well. Let's have a look for the first client. So I have client Python file, PyProject file, the Docker file for the client, and the data.csv file. As we have seen in the second part, we need this .csv file for that image. Okay. After that, we need to build the image, and I'm going to test that on this test VM. So one step that I have missed is we need to build an image based on the Docker file. So I have these contents available in that folder of server underscore docker, and we are going to build a Docker image as we have done in the second part. So to build an image, Docker build with the flag of T for the tag, and then the name of the image that we want to assign to our image. So let's say test server image, and then the name of the Docker file, which is serverflower.docker file, and then press enter, and hopefully it will start building the image. Again, it will take some time to build the whole image, maybe 8 to 10 minutes. We are not going to wait for that. As I've already mentioned, I have built these 4 images on these 4 virtual machines. For the server, I have built an image for the server, and for the clients, their respective images. You can check the images as well. So you can see that I have this flower dash server dash image being there on this virtual machine. And similarly, if we see the client side, I can see that we have this flower client image, and same goes for client 2 and client 3 as well. Yep. Wonderful. So once we have built these images, the last step is just to run the container, and hopefully we'll see the interaction of these VMs using Flower-FL. So first, let's run the container for the server, and for that we are going to use docker run command in the interactive mode, and then the name of the container. Let's say this is flower server container, then the network, which should be the host, so that the container use the IP address of this virtual machine and not the IP address of this container. And we want to run this flower image. What was the name of that image? I believe flowers. This flower server image. Let's run this. Yep. So it has started running, and in the Python file, if you remember in the part 2, we have modified the contents in such a way that it's taking the IP address and the port number from the user instead of hard coding it. So we are going to provide the IP address of the server. In this case, it should be the actual IP address of the server, which is 115.146.84 and 72. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, press enter, and the port number of the server, let's say it's 5005. Okay, and for the client, we need to run the client image, but apart from that, we also need to provide the local dataset file as well. And I believe that file is inside the other folder, flower simulation, and we have this data folder here. So let's run the container from this directory. So it would be easy to give the paths of that data _1.csv file. By the way, if I go inside this data and see, yeah, there's a data _1.csv file, and we need to give this data _1.csv file to the container. So let's run that client image. So docker run interactive mode, and now we need to specify that file. We are going to mount the volume of the host directory to the container directory, and for that because we are running inside this data directory, so data _1.csv, and it should mount to the app and data.csv place. Right, then the name of the container, let's call it as a flower client 1 container, and then the name of the network, which is host, and finally the name of the image, which I believe was flower client image. Yep, there is a typo here. Okay. Yep. Okay, let's give the IP address for the server. Again, we need to provide the actual IP address of the server, which is 115.146.84.72, and the port number that we used was 5005. Wonderful. We can see that these two virtual machines are interacting with each other. The server has received those model parameters, the initial global random model parameters from this specific line. So yeah, it's working. That's good news. And we are going to do the same for the second and third client, starting with this. So we are right now here. Let's go inside this directory and then this. Okay, and we need to change a couple of things. We need to mount the data _2 CSV file. Let's name the container something else. By the way, it doesn't matter because we are running this container on separate virtual machines. You can name it as flower client container and it should make sense, but let's name it as 2, and yeah, the same image. .115.146.84.72, and finally for the third client. Yep, let's modify this one. Name of the container, and hopefully it should work. Okay, so yeah, it's working as was the case with the previous three parts. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As far as this part is concerned, we have seen that how can we use Docker to run this example on the Nectar cloud. That's pretty much it, or that's pretty much the end of this video series. I hope that you have learned a thing or two from these videos, and if you have any questions, please post those in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to answer those. Thank you.